January 17th, 1944. The Italian winter had turned the Liri Valley into a maze of mud and frozen stone. Operation Shingle was 3 days away, and the Allied advance toward Monte Cassino had stalled before a network of German fortifications that maps failed to reveal. Technical Sergeant James Mallory, a former commercial photographer from Philadelphia assigned to the 166th Signal Photo Company, crouched in a shallow depression 200 yards from the German line. Rain pattered against his helmet as he adjusted the aperture on his standard-issue Graflex speed graphic camera. The battalion had lost 3 reconnaissance patrols in the past week. Each time, men disappeared into the mist-shrouded valley, only to be cut down by fire from invisible positions. The Germans had perfected the art of concealment. Bunkers carved into hillsides, machine gun nests hidden beneath natural rock formations, observation posts tucked within the ruins of ancient structures. "You're wasting your time, Mallory," Lieutenant Wilkins whispered, his breath visible in the pre-dawn chill. "Intelligence says there's at least a dozen pillboxes out there, but damned if anyone can spot them before they open fire." Mallory nodded silently, his eyes never leaving the viewfinder. At 36, he was older than most of the men in his unit. The camera in his hands wasn't just a documentation tool, it was the only weapon he had ever carried. His assignment was simple: photograph German positions for artillery targeting. The reality was impossible: how to photograph what couldn't be seen. 300 yards ahead, a patrol from the 36th Infantry Division moved cautiously across an open field. Mallory tensed, his finger hovering above the shutter. The silence broke with the distinctive chatter of an MG-42. Muzzle flashes appeared from what had seemed to be an ordinary rocky outcropping. The patrol scattered, 2 men falling immediately. Mallory pressed the shutter, capturing the moment, but not the exact position of the hidden bunker. "That's the 4th time this week," Wilkins hissed. "Same story every time. They see us before we see them." Mallory lowered his camera, a strange expression crossing his weathered face. In the split second of the firefight, something had occurred to him, a half-formed idea born from years in darkened studios, manipulating light and shadow. Back in Philadelphia, he had been known for revealing what the eye couldn't see. "Sir," he said slowly, "I think I know how we might find those bunkers before they find us." The Allied campaign in Italy had become a grinding war of attrition. The German defensive line, part of the larger Gustav Line, consisted of thousands of reinforced positions built into the natural terrain. Unlike the concrete fortifications of the Atlantic Wall, these were organically integrated into the landscape, using existing rock formations, ruins, and vegetation as camouflage. They remained invisible until they opened fire, making conventional reconnaissance nearly useless. Standard aerial photography had failed to reveal these positions. The 15th Air Force had conducted multiple reconnaissance flights, producing thousands of images that intelligence officers pored over without success. The problem wasn't just the Germans' skill at concealment, but the fundamental limitations of conventional photography itself. "The human eye can detect contrasts our cameras can't," Mallory explained to Captain Morris, the battalion's intelligence officer, later that evening in the command tent. Spread before them were dozens of aerial photographs, each showing what appeared to be unremarkable terrain. "It's about light and shadow, sir. These bunkers have firing slits, ventilation holes, slight differences in vegetation patterns, but they're all lost in these flat images." Morris rubbed his eyes tiredly. "We've lost 17 men in the last 10 days, Sergeant. Artillery can't target what we can't pinpoint." The fatal flaw in Allied reconnaissance was becoming increasingly clear. The Leica III cameras used by reconnaissance aircraft and the speed graphics carried by ground photographers were excellent instruments, but limited by the physics of light. They captured what was visible at the moment of exposure, nothing more. "In my civilian work," Mallory continued, I used synchronized flash systems to reveal details invisible to the naked eye. Multiple light sources, triggered simultaneously, can create shadows and highlights that expose hidden dimensions. And how exactly would you propose setting up studio lighting in the middle of a battlefield, Sergeant? Morris asked skeptically. Mallory hesitated. That's the problem, sir. The equipment doesn't exist in our inventory. I'd need to modify our gear significantly. And what? And the modifications would technically violate regulations on equipment alterations. Signal Corps Directive 17B specifically prohibits unauthorized modifications to photographic equipment. Morris laughed humorlessly. You're worried about regulations when men are dying. No, sir, Mallory replied. And I'm telling you, I need materials that aren't in our supply chain, and I need permission to break several equipment protocols to build something that might not work. The captain studied him for a long moment. How long would it take? 3 days, if I can get what I need. And what exactly do you need? Mallory took a deep breath. Radio parts, multiple flash bulbs, wire, batteries, and the freedom to cannibalize at least 2 Graflex cameras. Morris nodded slowly. You have 48 hours, Sergeant, not 3 days, and if this works, I never heard about any equipment violations. Before the war transformed him into Technical Sergeant Mallory, James Mallory had been one of Philadelphia's most innovative commercial photographers. His studio on Market Street specialized in architectural photography and industrial documentation, fields that demanded technical precision and creative problem-solving. While other photographers relied on natural light and conventional techniques, Mallory had built a reputation for revealing what others could not see. In 1937, he had developed a multi-flash technique to photograph the interior structural damage of the Wanamaker building after a small fire. By positioning synchronized flashes at precise angles, he created revealing shadows that highlighted hairline cracks, invisible under normal lighting conditions. Engineers credited his photographs with preventing a potential structural collapse. 2 years later, his photographs of manufacturing defects for Baldwin Locomotive Works earned him a profile in popular photography. The article, Mallory's Magic, Making the Invisible Visible, detailed his pioneering work with synchronized flash photography. Now, as Mallory sat in the damp shepherd's hut examining his disassembled camera equipment, those civilian innovations seemed a lifetime away. Around him lay the realities of war, mud-caked boots, the distant rumble of artillery, the knowledge that men's lives depended on his success. The skills he had honed for commercial clients now needed to be adapted to combat conditions. You were a photographer before all this, Private Garner asked, watching Mallory's practiced hands work with delicate precision despite the cold. Still am, Mallory replied without looking up, just with a different subject matter. The rain intensified outside, drumming against the stone roof. Mallory paused his work, reaching into his jacket to remove a worn leather wallet. From it, he extracted a small photograph protected in cellophane, a woman and a young girl standing before a Christmas tree. My wife Catherine and our daughter Emily, he explained, noticing Garner's interest. Emily was 7 when this was taken. She's 9 now. Is that why you volunteered for the Signal Corps, sir? To keep taking pictures? Mallory carefully returned the photograph to his wallet. I volunteered because I thought my skills might be useful. Before the war, I used photography to help people see things they might otherwise miss. Structural problems, manufacturing defects. Now you're doing the same thing, Garner finished, just with deadlier consequences. Mallory nodded. Light reveals truth, Private. Always has. The Germans are hiding in shadow and natural cover. If we can control the light, even for a fraction of a second, we might just reveal what they've worked so hard to hide. He returned to his work, connecting a firing capacitor to the modified radio circuit. His civilian expertise had given him a unique perspective on the battlefield problem. Where military photographers were trained to document, Mallory had been trained to reveal. That fundamental difference in approach might now save lives. As night fell, Mallory tested the first prototype flash unit. The brief, brilliant illumination temporarily blinded both men in the small hut. "That's intense," Garner said, blinking away after images. "Not intense enough," Mallory replied, adjusting a connection. "We need 5 of these, all firing simultaneously from different angles. That's the key. Intersecting light sources create revealing shadows from multiple directions." By midnight, the first flash synchronization system was taking shape. What had begun as a commercial photographer's technique for revealing flaws in locomotive engines might soon expose the deadly secrets of the Gustav line, if Mallory could translate his civilian expertise into battlefield application before more men died. Mallory worked through the night in the makeshift workshop. Around him lay the disassembled components of 2-speed graphic cameras, their precision parts carefully arranged on a wool blanket. The hut smelled of sheep dung and motor oil. A single kerosene lamp cast elongated shadows across the stone walls. His idea was both simple and revolutionary, a synchronized multi-flash system that could be deployed at night across a wide area, triggering simultaneously to create artificial daylight for a fraction of a second. The momentary illumination would reveal subtle shadows and contours invisible under normal conditions, the telltale signs of disturbed earth, artificial structures, and camouflage netting. The challenge lay in synchronization. Flash photography in 1944 required precise timing between the camera shutter and the flash discharge. Mallory needed to extend this synchronization across multiple flash units separated by dozens of yards, something never attempted before. From the radio repair unit, he had scrounged 6 SCR 536 handy talkie transceivers. From the artillery observers, he borrowed signal flares and triggering mechanisms. The motor pool reluctantly supplied vehicle batteries. The remaining components came from his own equipment and personal supply of flashbulbs, precious commodities he had been saving for months. "This is delicate work," he explained to Private Garner, who continued to assist him. Mallory's fingers worked deftly, soldering wire connections to the flash contacts. "Too much current, and the bulbs will blow before the shutter opens. Too little, and they won't fire at all." "Sir, isn't this against regulations?" Garner asked nervously, watching Mallory modify the camera's synchronization circuit. "That's why we're not doing this in the company tent," Mallory replied without looking up. "If it works, no one will care. If it doesn't—" He left the sentence unfinished. The core of his system was a modified radio transmitter that would send a simultaneous signal to 5 receivers connected to flash units. Each receiver would trigger its flash bulb within milliseconds of the others, creating a brief moment of uniform illumination across a wide area. The camera would be synchronized to capture the exact instant when all 5 flashes reached peak brightness. By dawn of the second day, Mallory had completed the central transmitter and 3 of the 5 receiver units. His eyes burned from soldering by lamplight, and his fingers were covered in small burns and cuts. The remaining 2 units would require parts he didn't have. "We need capacitors," he told Captain Morris, who had come to check on his progress, "and more flashbulbs." "There's a signal core supply depot 20 miles south," Morris replied. "I can't officially requisition experimental equipment, but I can get you there." The journey to the depot and back consumed precious hours. By the time they returned, only 14 hours remained before Mallory's deadline. He worked without pause, connecting circuits, testing voltages, adjusting synchronization timing. Each flash unit needed to be weatherproofed, as the January rain continued to fall intermittently outside. "But the Germans will see the flashes," Garner pointed out as midnight approached. "They'll know exactly where we are. That's why we'll only get one chance," Mallory confirmed grimly. 1 exposure, 5 flashes, and then immediate relocation. We'll have seconds before their artillery zeroes in on our position. As dawn approached on the 3rd day, Mallory assembled his team of 5 volunteers who would position the flash units under cover of darkness the following night. The risk was enormous. Not only was each man carrying a highly visible light source, but they would be exposing themselves in areas suspected to be within range of German positions. "If this works," Morris said quietly as Mallory demonstrated the system, "you've just changed the way we fight this war." "If it works?" Mallory repeated. "We might save a few lives tomorrow. That's enough." January 20th, 1944. A moonless night shrouded the Liri Valley in near-total darkness. The rain had stopped, but low clouds obscured the stars, perfect conditions for Mallory's experiment and for the German defenders who relied on darkness to keep their positions hidden. 5 two-man teams moved silently through the American lines shortly after midnight, each carrying one of Mallory's modified flash units. Following predetermined routes mapped out during daylight hours, they navigated to positions forming a rough semicircle, approximately 400 yards wide, facing the suspected German emplacements. Mallory himself took position at the center of the arc, his modified camera mounted on a sturdy tripod. Lieutenant Wilkins crouched beside him, binoculars ready. 500 yards behind them, 2 batteries of 105mm howitzers stood prepared, their crews waiting for coordinates. "Unit 1 in position," came the whispered message through Mallory's handset. One by one, the other teams reported readiness. The flash units were positioned low to the ground, partially sheltered by rocks or depressions to minimize their visibility to German observers. "All units, final check," Mallory called softly. "Remove safety covers. Arm triggers. Confirmation. Over." 5 acknowledgements came in succession. "Stand by for countdown." "Exposure in 30 seconds." Mallory's hands moved with practiced precision over his camera, aperture set to f11, shutter speed at 1/30th of a second, lens focused to approximately 800 yards, the estimated distance to the German main line. The modified synchronization circuit hummed softly. 10 seconds, he whispered, both to his radio and to Wilkins beside him. Mallory took a deep breath, steadying himself. Everything depended on timing. The camera shutter would open, the transmitter would activate all 5 remote flashes simultaneously, and for 1/30th of a second, the hidden landscape would be revealed as if under harsh daylight. 3, 2, 1, now. Mallory pressed the shutter release. The night exploded in light. 5 brilliant flashes illuminated the valley from different angles, casting sharp, revealing shadows across the terrain. For a split second, the invisible became visible. The camera captured what the human eye could barely register: subtle contours in the earth, sharp corners where natural formations should have been rounded, the faint reflective quality of camouflage netting, ventilation holes in disguised bunkers. The moment passed in an instant, but the after-image burned in Mallory's vision. Before the echoes of the flashes had faded, German machine guns opened fire toward the light sources. Flares rose from the German lines, illuminating the valley with an eerie red glow. "Move! Now!" Wilkins shouted. All across their position, men grabbed equipment and scrambled rearward as mortar rounds began falling near the flash positions. Mallory carefully packed his camera, the precious exposed plate secured inside. Through his headset, he confirmed that all teams were withdrawing. 2 men reported minor injuries from the hasty retreat, but everyone was accounted for. 3 hours later, in a field darkroom set up in a wine cellar beneath a bombed-out farmhouse, Mallory developed his photographic plate with trembling hands. As the image emerged in the developer bath, a collective gasp filled the small space. What had appeared as an ordinary hillside in all previous reconnaissance was now revealed as an intricate defensive network. The multiple light sources had created intersecting shadows that perfectly outlined 7 concealed bunkers, 3 machine gun nests, and what appeared to be an observation post. "My God," Captain Morris whispered, studying the still wet photograph. "They're all there, hiding in plain sight." Within an hour, precise coordinates were calculated and delivered to Artillery Command. At dawn, synchronized barrages from 3 artillery battalions struck the previously invisible targets with devastating accuracy. By mid-morning, infantry units advanced past positions that would have cost dozens of lives to overcome just days earlier. The success was immediate and undeniable. Where previous attacks had been met with devastating fire from unseen positions, the advancing troops now moved with confidence, knowing the enemy's carefully hidden defenses had been mapped and neutralized. "We need to do this again," Morris told Mallory as they watched the infantry secure the hillside. "Tonight, different sector." Mallory nodded, already calculating what repairs and modifications would be needed after the previous night's hasty retreat. "Oh, we'll need more flashbulbs, and I think I can improve the synchronization timing." That night, they repeated the procedure in a sector 2 miles east. Again, the synchronized flashes revealed what conventional reconnaissance had missed: a network of defensive positions integrated so naturally into the landscape that they had been virtually invisible even in daylight. By the 3rd night, word of Mallory's technique had reached division headquarters. A colonel from G2 Intelligence arrived to observe the procedure personally. Standing in the makeshift darkroom as Mallory developed the night's plates, the colonel watched in silence as the hidden German defenses emerged from the chemical bath. "I've never seen anything like this," he admitted. "How many lives has this saved already?" "Hard to say, sir," Mallory replied, fixing the negative. "But we've identified 23 concealed positions in 3 nights. I want this technique implemented across the entire front," the colonel announced. "How quickly can you train other photography units?" The success of Mallory's improvised flash system spread rapidly through the ranks. Within a week, the 166th Signal Photo Company had constructed 10 complete systems based on his design. Intelligence officers from multiple divisions observed demonstrations and requested systems of their own. By early February, the technique had been formally documented and named the Mallory method in field communications. Signal Corps engineers in London worked to refine the system, making it more portable and improving its synchronization mechanism. The improvised contraption of a battlefield photographer became standard operating procedure for night reconnaissance against camouflaged positions. The wider implementation of Mallory's system directly influenced the planning for Operation Diadem, the 4th and finally successful Battle of Monte Cassino in May 1944. Nighttime flash photography revealed dozens of concealed German positions throughout the Liri Valley, allowing for precise artillery targeting that neutralized key defensive positions before infantry assaults began. In a classified after-action report dated June 3, 1944, Brigadier General James Wheeler of the 2 Corps Artillery wrote, "The pre-operation identification of camouflaged enemy positions using the Mallory photographic method directly contributed to the success of Operation Diadem, allowing for the neutralization of approximately 60% of German defensive positions before infantry engagement." This method has proven to be one of the most significant tactical innovations of the Italian campaign. The original handmade system was eventually shipped to Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland, where Army technicians used it as the basis for a manufactured version designated the ANUSS-7 Photographic Flash Synchronization System. By the war's end, over 200 similar systems would be deployed across all theaters of operation. Mallory himself received the Bronze Star in a small ceremony on February 13, 1944. The citation carefully avoided mentioning the unauthorized equipment modifications, instead praising his innovative application of photographic techniques in a combat environment. In the months that followed, Mallory trained other photographers in the use of his system. The technique proved especially valuable in the Pacific Theater, where Japanese forces excelled at jungle concealment. On Peleliu, and later on Okinawa, synchronized flash photography revealed camouflaged positions that had evaded detection by conventional means. After the war, Mallory returned to commercial photography in Philadelphia. His wartime innovation remained largely classified until 1957, when aspects of the technology were declassified and adapted for civilian use in archaeological surveys and structural analysis. Modern architectural photographers still use multiple synchronized flash units to reveal structural details, a technique that traces its lineage directly to those desperate nights in the Italian winter of 1944. In 1962, a young photographer visited Mallory's studio, hoping to interview him about his wartime experiences for a book on military photography innovations. Mallory initially declined, but eventually agreed to a brief statement. "Photography isn't just about recording what's there," he explained. "It's about revealing what's hidden. During the war, what was hidden was killing our boys. We found a way to make the invisible visible. That's all there is to it." James Mallory rarely spoke of his wartime service beyond this, declining further interviews and recognition. When pressed by family about his Bronze Star, he would simply say that he had taken some important pictures. He continued taking photographs until his death in 1978, specializing in architectural studies that emphasized the interplay of light and shadow, forever searching for what lay hidden in plain sight. Military historians now recognize the Mallory method as one of several crucial tactical innovations that emerged from battlefield necessity rather than formal research and development. In the official Signal Corps history compiled in 1962, a single paragraph acknowledges the contribution. Technical Sergeant James Mallory, 166th Signal Photo Company, developed a synchronized multiple flash system that revealed camouflaged enemy positions previously undetectable by conventional means. The system is estimated to have saved hundreds of lives by enabling precise targeting of defensive structures. The principles established by Mallory's field improvisation continue to inform modern military imaging techniques. The flash system that began as an illegal modification in a shepherd's hut ultimately changed the course of mountain warfare in Italy and saved countless Allied lives. Today, variations of Mallory's technique are still used in modern military imaging, proving that sometimes the most valuable innovations come not from research laboratories, but from the creative adaptation of civilian expertise to battlefield challenges. Technical Sergeant James Mallory, commercial photographer turned military innovator, revealed what others couldn't see, and in doing so, illuminated a path to victory.